sold like 200,000 copies, hit #1 New York Times years after you wrote the book, right? So sometimes you do something worthy, it takes a while for the world to catch up.
I was a pro baseball player and got injured and had to retire in my 20s and devastated. It was completely my whole identity. I get this job with the Texas Rangers. I quit 6 months later in tears. I get asked to coach the South African national team to be their hitting coach for the 2000 Sydney Olympics. We go to Sydney Olympics and have one of the biggest upset victories in Olympic baseball history. Got to meet Nelson Mandela.
Jim Murphy went from professional baseball to becoming the mindset coach trusted by Olympians, elite athletes, and top performers worldwide. His book, Inner Excellence, exploded in January 2025 after NFL star A.J. Brown was caught reading it on the sidelines.
This book burst on certainly the National Football League scene out of nowhere thanks to A.J. Brown.
Inner Excellence, written by author Jim Murphy, catapulted to become Amazon's best-selling book Monday, just one day after A.J. Brown's sideline reading session.
A moment that lit up sports media everywhere. Today, Jim breaks down the exact brain hack world-class athletes use to master stress under the highest pressure.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.
I made a practice starting in my early 20s to go out and do every single thing that I was afraid of. I have no idea what part of me motivated me to do that, but
it resulted in a $6 million business by the time you're 26.
Yeah, it made a difference because, you can only look stupid so many times, right? And, that means you have to deal with shame and guilt and fear. And
meaning after that, you're like, okay, you're like, look, I've looked foolish so many times. What's another one?
And the story is the internal story is I will die if I'm shamed. And it's a real thing because if you're in a tribe, like I was just with the Maasai and they have this brutal practice they told me about. So the Maasai warriors, they train and a lot of them have scars on their arms because when they're 15, they get circumcised with no anesthesia whatsoever. And if they flinch or make a sound or show any motion or movement at all, their entire family is shamed and kicked out of the tribe. And less than 1% fail.
That's intense.
It's incredibly intense. And, well, why? Because if you're kicked out of the tribe, you really will get eaten, right? So we have it in our mitochondria, in our ancient billion-year-old biology, that if you're kicked out of the tribe, you die. And so this is why shame has this huge, sense of doom. Mm-hmm. It's not real. It's just your body manipulating you just in case you're going to get kicked out of the tribe. But once you experience failure and you go, oh, wow, I didn't die. And instead of wallowing in it, you go, I didn't die. And you frame it the way you talk about in your work. Then the next time it isn't triggering nearly as much in exposure therapy. I think that's made a difference for me before I learned the reset process and all the other things. But it's not a path for everyone, that's for sure. But learning how to lose is maybe more important than learning how to win.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, anybody can win and enjoy that. But how many people can lose and learn and grow from it and really embrace it and find every little thing that can make them better? It's very few people.
Yeah, very few. What would you say to someone who hates the way they show up in the world, but they don't know how to change it?
There's so much out of your control in this world. There's so much fear, anxiety, tension, violence in the world. And understanding that you could die tomorrow is so important. I was just, like I shared earlier, that I spent 5 hours yesterday and today at Upgrade Labs here. It was a really incredible experience. And talking to one of the staff about how I want to live is I want to be every moment ready to fully live or physically die every moment of the day. I'm not saying I've done that much, but that's how I would like to be.
That's the goal.
And so fully live, and part of that is really to embrace wisdom. And whether it's from an 8-year-old or an 88-year-old, a homeless person or anyone, to be able to recognize it. It's like, wow, okay, I need to listen right here. Because I think wisdom is always calling, and most of my life I haven't heard it and understood it. And so I want to get better at hearing and embracing it. And then being ready to physically die in a moment's notice. And so if someone is not happy with how they're presenting themselves to the world, it's really like, how do I be my true self? I think it's really understanding that there's no one in the world that can bring to the world what you can. There's no one else in the world that can be Dave Asprey. No one has your experience and your relationships and your millions of dollars of biohacking and everything that you've been through. And the same thing for a person, could be a teenager that says, I don't like how I present myself to the world. And it's really important to understand that no one can bring to the world what you can. And that to be true to yourself, to me, is really understanding how the world works, how the universe was created. And it's really like we're created for relationships. And if you devote your life, or even if you say, like, I'm just going to devote this day to serving someone, then you can start to get into that flow where you have that joy, and then you can build on that.
I like it. Flow and joy. That self-loathing thing is so big. I think social media amplifies it, and having a purpose and then just learning that voice in your head is not really real. For me, it was a big part of the lesson here. So I love the way you're framing all this. Thank you.
Yeah, you talked about shame, and for me, shame is it's kind of like I think about guilt and shame together, whereas guilt is I made a mistake, and shame is I am a mistake.
Yes. What a big difference, though.
Guilt is I failed.
Yeah.
Shame is I am a failure. And so that shame, you can heal the shame as you start to get into that sacrificial love. And recognize my whole life may have been a failure. Like maybe I made terrible decisions my whole entire life. That's okay. None of that matters anymore. Are you willing to let it go? And are you willing to do your best to walk in love today? The selflessness that creates this fearlessness. Are you open for that? And if you are, then anything's possible.
I look at guilt as a positive emotion and shame as a negative one. Where if you feel guilt over something you did, well, you should probably apologize, right? Yeah. Make it right. And if you don't, you're probably a narcissist and you just don't know it. Which is what narcissists are. They don't know they're narcissists. If they did know, they would be sociopaths. So that whole study for me was really enlightening to understand, like, this is what happens around shame, where, oh my God, I'm such a piece of whatever. And, I get over that. Like, I screwed up. And that's just a learning point. And anyone who makes that transition in life to transmute shame into guilt, because guilt is fixable and shame is not. So that's terribly important. There's something else. It's a part of longevity for me. The most successful agers, the happiest people who've taught me something in their 90s, they have this childlike energy, a sense of play that they somehow either regained or never lost. I'm thinking of one of the world's top Mr. Olympians who's been on the show, Frank Zane, totally like that. And Eric Kandel, Nobel Prize winner, 94 years old, totally playful. How do we recapture that childlike energy so that we can have it for our whole life? Super
powerful. Really big part of inner excellence. I think of that in two words: awe and wonder. How do we get more awe and wonder? And the opposite is lack of freedom. And that lack of freedom, which kind of comes similar to, like I said, the overanalysis and the judgment. And it all kind of comes down to that self-protection and fear. And so how do we get out of that fear and into that love where we have this, because love is fearless, and now we can get into the awe and wonder. You can think of it as we got love and then joy and then peace and awe and wonder. And so it's kind of this progression. And so if we want to get into the childlike awe and wonder, we have to get into that love. And love is this willingness to sacrifice how you look, how you come off to others, and are you willing to be embarrassed and fail and look foolish? Because if you're not willing to do it, you're never going to have this awe and wonder as a kid, which is so crucial. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is, I think, such a big part of the best possible life and high performance is having that ability to play like a kid.
We used to teach young men to be courageous. And it feels like today we teach them, oh, were you scared? Oh, everyone else should change so that you won't have to feel fear. What is courage, and how do we teach it?
That's a great question, because I think that courage is the biggest difference that I see in the elite athletes that I've been working with for decades. and anyone that's really successful, I think courage is the number one thing. And courage, this place in your heart, this willingness to fail, willingness to look foolish, willingness to be embarrassed is so crucial. I mean, there's no way to have resilience without this. Yeah. And resilience is what makes people great. It makes a great business, because whether you look at your life, whether you look at a great business or anything, it's not a single path that's a straight line, right? It's always plan B, plan B, plan B. That's how the greatest businesses are. They're adapting. And that's what a great life is learning to adapt. So courage is the willingness to fail and to look foolish and really to master the ego. And what's great about that, is that we can all be courageous.
We all can be courageous. And I look at courage as feeling fear and doing it anyway. Right. And there's a little bit of maybe a self-harm evident, or there's a little bit of a self-harm angle to that, where I was feeling fear because it's dangerous in a meaningfully, like you could lose your legs kind of thing. And then you do it anyway. And then you go, oops, that was a serious mistake. And there's some kind of edge between I felt fear, but it wasn't a real fear, versus that was a clear warning from my biology that if I do that, I'm going to have to get a new knee. How do we teach kids presence instead of confidence when they need it most?
Now let's talk about kids. Often when I ask someone what they want most and they're unsure, I say, well, what do you want most for your kids? And so what I share with them is that what I found, I think most people resonate with, is that they want to have, for themselves and for their kids, a life with amazing experiences and deep, enriching relationships where they're learning and growing and making a difference in the world. Just kind of like
as a dad, that's what I want for my kids. Yeah.
And so if that's what you want for your kids, the first thing is to model it yourself. And so you can think about it when I'm squeezed, when I'm under pressure, whether it's a little thing like getting cut off in traffic, or someone says something mean to you, or whatever it is, or we have some sort of adversity, what happened? What comes out of our heart? This is kind of how, because you can't really see the type of person, what's in your heart when things are going good. It's only when you're under pressure. And so that's what we want to model for our kids. And and understanding that we live in a culture that's obsessed about results, and yet if you want to have great results, then you've got to obsess about being fully present, fully engaged. And then, so that life is really hard to be fully present when you're in a culture that's obsessed about the opposite. It just doesn't matter what's going on right now. In the middle of the performance is only what happens at the end.
Right.
And so that's where you really want to think about, how do I want to live my life? Am I going to live caught up in what everyone wants from me, or it says is good, or do I want to live a meaningful, fulfilling life? And that's where love comes in, because joy, which I define as a deep sense of well-being, freedom, and gratitude, an inner buoyancy that comes from love. Wow. This is, I think love is the most powerful force in the universe. It's what holds the stars in place, grows the grass, and spins the earth. And this is, love is completely fearless. And so if you want to make a difference with your kid, then it's learning about this. How do I walk in love, not fear? How do I be, grateful, not entitled? When I'm squeezed, how do I have that be a part of my daily life? And that takes daily training.
Wow. That's really profound. Love is a force that Western science doesn't really pay a lot of attention to. And like, oh, it's oxytocin and testosterone. But there's, in all the esoteric learnings that I know, it's a part of peace. It's a part of gratitude. It's a part of the state we all want. It's part of joy, right?
And you talk about peace and forgiveness a lot as well. You know, one of the 5 F's.
Yeah, it's true. So there's something about love that it's hard to define and put in fact, it's like the Supreme Court definition of pornography. You know, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. And kind of with love, oh, that person's operating out of love versus something else. You've mentioned in your work that in about 10 seconds, you can identify if someone is playing for approval or playing for joy. What are the signs that someone is playing their sport or doing their thing out of joy versus out of seeking approval?
Love is the most powerful force in the universe, like I said. And so, if you're playing out of love, then your greatest desire is not to beat the opponent. So first of all, you don't even know if winning is the best thing for you. Like we don't know, like I've got my top 10 goals that I want and top 10 things that I don't want in my life, just as we all do, but they could actually be flip-flopped. It's possible that the 10 things I want least are the 10 things that are best for me. The 10 things that I want most are maybe the worst things for me. And I don't know if that's true or not. So I want to hold those things loosely. And so in performance, we want to make sure that if I want to learn and grow and have an extraordinary performance, when I don't know what's best for me, so like with Inner Excellence, we never talk about outcomes except for at the beginning of the year, we talk about goals. But our main goal anyway, every day, is to learn and grow. That's our number one goal, learn and grow, especially in love, wisdom, and courage, because we want to become a certain type of person that when they're squeezed, that this selfless and therefore fearlessness comes out.
One of the scarier things that I hear, especially young people say, is, I want to be an influencer. Like, do you know the curse that comes with that? And yes, there's all sorts of benefits that come from it. I'm not saying there aren't, and certainly we both are influencers, but it comes with a heavy burden around ego, around awareness, around trust, and things like that. So I always kind of like, are you seeking approval? Are you seeking fame? Or do you want to be an influencer because you have a why behind it? And spotting the difference between those, I think, determines whether someone becomes the kind of influencer who blows up and kind of ruins their life, and the kind of influencer who weathers the critics and all the online garbage and comes through with something that's meaningful. And it feels like the why at the beginning is what determines that.
I totally get it. Why a kid would want to be an influencer. There's two real big reasons. One is that our greatest need is for unconditional love. And if you're an influencer, I think theoretically that means you have a lot of people that are following you. So you're getting that love and you're getting some money, right? And so if you have that love and that money, like that's what that's what we want. And so our greatest need is for unconditional love. Our greatest fear is rejection. And so if you're an influencer, then theoretically you're going to be getting that love.
Theoretically.
And so, you know, what I would tell that person is say, why do you want to be an influencer? What is it that you want most? So Inner Excellence is really always about diving deep. What is it that you really want? Say, like, because I give this example in the book, The Best Possible Life. Say you could have a $10 million home on the water paid off and have all the whatever comes with that. You could have that life. Or you could live in an apartment, paycheck to paycheck, no savings the rest of your life, but be guaranteed deep contentment, joy, happiness, amazing experiences every single day of your life. Which one would you want? And I know for me, most of my life, I would have chosen the house because I didn't really have this awareness of, well, why do you want the house? But if you think it through, oh, well, I want to have the house so I can have these great get-togethers where people are going to come over. We're going to have such a good time. Oh, wait, you want it because you want to have a good time. So you want good experiences. Okay. So Inner Excellence says, let's go for that directly.
Where that becomes the primary goal and everything else is secondary. I really like that. I guess most of my life I would have said the $10 million house too until I understood property taxes, especially in California. No, man, no, thank you. I'll lease.
That's funny.
A lot of this programming, it seems like it comes down to what happened when we were kids. It's certainly in my life and everyone I've ever worked with, executives and whatnot. So in your work with professional athletes and with CEOs and all, what's the most surprising way you've seen childhood wiring sabotage world-class performance?
Well, I can tell you that the number one way is through the ego. This fear of failure, fear of getting embarrassed, and you know, fear of looking foolish. And there's something that I think that would be very powerful for the listeners to consider, is that principle number 2 of Inner Excellence. There's 3 principles. Number 2 is that everyone does the best they can with what they have in their hearts. And so you talked about when you're a kid, you know, so much of your experiences as a kid impact you as an adult, impact all of us. And, cause we're so impressionable when we're younger. And if you think about, well, cause some people maybe have parents that they feel, made some mistakes in parenting them, for example. That's common, right? To feel that.
All parents make mistakes.
And so if you believe this, that I believe is true, that everyone does the best they can with what they have in their hearts.
Yeah.
Then you can get into what you taught, one of your 5 F's is that forgiveness.
Right.
And so And that's with everything. Not only is everyone always doing the best they can with what they have in their hearts, it doesn't mean that what they did was good. There may be some repercussions that need to happen, but it's helping you understand and not get into the fear and judgment that comes when you judge. And so, not only did they do the best they can with what they have in their heart, but you would have done the exact or said the exact same thing they said or did if you had their childhood, their beliefs, their fears, their wounds, their lens through seeing the world, you would have said or done the exact same thing.
So and so paying it forward.
So what's the only wise response if you see someone that's acting or acted towards you in a way that is not empowering or helpful, and you recognize that you wouldn't do that? The only wise response is compassion.
I thought you were going to say pepper spray. Okay, compassion.
It's compassion because you have that in your heart and they don't.
Yeah.
You have those resources and they don't. So it's a gift. That's gratitude is the only wise. And I'm not saying that's easy or that I've ever done it. I'm just saying that's the wise response.
I interviewed Victor Chan a while ago, the Dalai Lama's best friend, and he told a story about a monk who came to visit the Dalai Lama who'd been tortured for 10 years in prison. And the Dalai Lama asked him and said, what was the hardest thing you went through? And the monk sits for a minute and he thinks, and he said, it was the time I almost lost compassion for my jailers. And so it was all something he could handle as long as he kept that compassion. But if he was going to drop into blame, then the pain would all be there.
That's so powerful. It reminds me of Nelson Mandela, similar. Because as soon as we start to judge, now we're creating this negative energy that some stays with us and some goes to the other person. And if you can imagine having that negative energy every single day, now you're going to have the pain. But if you add the negative energy on top of it, it's like being depressed about being depressed. It doubles the pain.
It totally does. Part of your framework that's really fascinating is Critic, Monkey Mind, and Trickster. What are these?
So when I think about the greatest obstacles that we face in performance and in life, it starts with self-centeredness, this natural need to be self-referential and feed myself and clothe myself. But it runs into some serious problems where we get in our own way. And we start overthinking. We have this overanalysis, and we have this judgmental thinking and negative thinking, and then we have this self-consciousness, this concern for what other people are going to think. And that's when I think about the critic, the trickster, and the judge. That's what was it the judge critic?
It was Critic, Monkey Mind, and
Monkey
Trickster.
Mind, yes. Monkey Mind, yeah. So the monkey mind, that overanalysis is that's a mind that has too many thoughts and too many concerns, and it's generally, for most of us, it's because we're living this self in the center life, constantly thinking about what's going to happen to me. Because fear is in general is a self-centered future thing. What will happen to me in the future? After I speak, after I perform, will they like it? Will they not? Will I get rejected? Will I not? And so that's why overanalysis happens. And this comes from this self-centered life.
So it's fear that something will happen to you. So because of fear and anxiety, you're just thinking about all the different things that could go wrong and monkey mind and all that. How's it different from the critic?
When I think of the critic, I think of this part of our mind that's always judging. So we have the too many thoughts, and then we have the part that's judging. When I say judge, I mean to give a negative verdict on self, circumstances, or others. And so like being judgmental. And so whenever we judge, some negative energy stays with us. Some goes to the circumstance or the other person. We become more unstable every time we do it. And so we don't want to judge if we want to live an extraordinary life or have an extraordinary performance. We want to use discernment to figure out what's the best approach for this person. Sometimes it might mean, having a boundary or whatever around the person or circumstance. And so developing non-judgmental awareness, kind of something that you talk about a lot, is this non-reactiveness, this inner peace where you're not constantly reacting to your circumstances. And then we have the trickster. And so for me, the number one thing that holds people back, like high performers that are really talented, is lack of freedom.
Yep, that's a big one.
And it's this, it kind of goes all the way back to this subconscious understanding that everyone has. My greatest need is to be loved and accepted. And if I screw this up, if I embarrass myself, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, or if I fail, I'm going to lose what I need most. And so lack of freedom is maybe the biggest issue, this self-consciousness, self-concern.
What is the trickster? You mentioned this in your work. That's a part of the inner wiring. Trickster is also, the Loki archetype. And a lot of my shamanic training, the trickster is usually present when there's metaphysical things happening, when, there's things that aren't supposed to happen. There's always a little bit of a twist at the end. So this is an inner trickster? Is this an outer trickster? How do you address that?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So this idea, the word trickster, comes from my friend John Kehoe. He wrote a book called Mind Power into the 21st Century. It's an incredible book, very simple, easy.
I have that book on my shelf, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's a great book. Kind of explains how the mind works. And so that idea of trickster for me is this part of our mind that I think of as the ego, always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied. And so when I think of the trickster, I think of that ego, but it's also saying, who are you to be great? You can't do this. Look at you failed here, you failed here. Look at all these mistakes you've made. And so you remember how I said, I think courage is the greatest difference between the best and anything and the rest. And part of that courage is, am I willing to let go of my past? Because people are really afraid to let go of their past, because who will I be? Aren't I my past? Yeah. It's kind of like you talk about it a lot. You're not your body and you're not your mind. So important to understand this, and that you're not your past, because if you realize most people will never reach their potential because they're too afraid to let go of their past, because then they lose their identity. Yes. And are you willing to let go of your past? Because if you're willing to let go of that and all you've been, then you can learn and grow and become someone you've never been before and do things that you've never done before.
I've worked with so many people who are saying, I don't know my purpose. I don't know my mission. They feel kind of lost. How do you help people connect with that?
Yeah, so there's some questions that we start off with right away. And the first one is, how do you want to feel? Say you're a baseball player on and off the field. Or when you're at work and when you're not at work, how do you want to feel?
So it's how you want to feel. Okay, I've not heard that before. That's cool.
Yeah, we start with how you want to feel, because that's anyone, any pro athlete, any performer, really anybody, when you're at your best. And if you're not an athlete, I just say, okay, when you've felt the best, what does it feel like? And usually it's pretty similar, right? I feel peace. I feel confident. I'm excited. I feel maybe some sense of joy. Maybe there's some contentment, whatever it is, freedom. And then I want to know how you don't want to feel, because we're going to start to develop habits of thought and action around getting you the feeling that you want, so you can get into this flow and understand when I'm getting into it and when I'm getting away from it. And so how you don't want to feel, usually very similar as well. I don't want to feel fear. I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel lost, stressed, etc. So we start with how you want to feel, and then we think about, how do I want to live? Meaning, how do I want to handle adversity, all the things that I can't control in life? And who do I want to become? And what do I value most? And we start to put that all into one sentence.
As I developed my awareness practices and all, at a certain point, the mean voice that's worried about feathering my head, it just went away. I don't have that inner critic anymore. Do you still have yours?
When I talk about that inner critic, I think about the ego, which I define, and you talk about a lot, which I define as that part of our mind that's always threatened, always comparing, and never satisfied. And I've never said that I can recall that I'm an expert at inner excellence. I would like to be. And every day I want to get better at it. Am I good at it? It's not something I think about whether I'm good at it or not. I know is that I can be a lot better. And I know I don't want to be mastered by my ego. And I want to walk in love, not fear. I want to be grateful, not entitled. I want to be curious, not reactive. And so I've got a ways to go, but that's what I'll do.
Yeah. There's two kinds of non-reactive. There's, I was visibly non-reactive. And then there's, I'm internally non-reactive. And it feels like the first step is, okay, at least even if I'm in turmoil, I'm going to smile, or I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it. And the other one is, whatever it was, didn't even create turmoil. So I didn't have to spend energy acting. How much of what you teach is about behaving yourself no matter what's going on inside versus changing what's going on inside?
So inner excellence is about heart transformation. So it's the belief that your heart, your spirit, and your will, these are three words that I use interchangeably. That's the control center for your life, working in concert with your subconscious mind.
Beautiful.
And so when you're squeezed, what's in your heart is going to come out. And so because I'm coaching professional athletes and Olympic athletes, a lot of people from all walks of life, but especially when I first started, that was the main focus. And, they have this performance under pressure. And so I want them, when they're feeling that pressure, to embrace that feeling. And so when you come, here's what the thing that separates the best from the rest in anything. And one big thing is that when they get really uncomfortable, they're able to embrace it where everyone else shrinks back. It's like Tom Cruise said, I'm afraid like everybody else, but I'm not afraid to be afraid. And this is such a crucial thing. And so if you have a big performance, if you can ask yourself some questions, am I willing to face my fears? Am I willing to have any feeling? That's a big one and a tough one. Any feeling at all, including the panicky feeling. Am I willing to have that? And am I willing to sit with it even if it doesn't go away?
Right.
Because what happens, people get these feelings and they don't know what to do with it. And then they resist it. Oh, this is really uncomfortable. I don't like it. And they run. And this is, so inner excellence is about expanding what you believe is possible. And so what we want to do is when we get to these edge of our feelings, when we're really uncomfortable, that's where you can expand because beliefs are feelings. And so when you come to those moments where you're really uncomfortable, you can ask yourself these questions. So if you know you're going to be uncomfortable in a certain situation, ask yourself these questions. And so the key is not so much, not the result of what happens, but were you willing to embrace that feeling? Because if you get better at being willing to embrace those feelings, your beliefs are going to expand, your results are going to improve.
It's the old Winston Churchill, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself quote. It's really elegant the way you're putting it, because that's what it ultimately comes down to is you can feel the fear or the anxiety or whatever it is. And, oh, look, a signal from my body, but I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. For me, recognizing that I am not my body and that my body has its own separate intelligence and operating system that is not me.
And you're not your ego you talk about, and you're not your mind. Very powerful.
Yeah, that's been really freeing for me because oh, look, my body's freaking out right now. I should probably take some amino acids or something, but it has no bearing on what I'm going to do right now.
That's so powerful. Like today, I was at Upgrade Labs, and yesterday and today, amazing place. So I did the cryo, and the cryo is scary and painful for a lot of people, including myself. Both days, I was afraid to get in, and it was painful, but it was exhilarating. And so I asked myself these same questions. Are you willing to have these feelings? Are you willing to have any feeling? What if you panic when you're in there? Because your cryo has no, like the ones that I've been in before, they have a little gap. Like if the door sticks, you can climb out.
Right.
This one's got no gap. You're like, if that door sticks and you can't get out, you can't get out.
We have a lock on the door to make sure you stay.
So yeah, it was great. I got to face those feelings yesterday and today, and I'll go back tomorrow.
A lot of the people who would identify as the mentally toughest people, it feels like they're still trying to prove something to the bullies in 7th grade. How do you get over that?
So by the time you become an adult, we have a subconscious mind that's meant to protect you and to line up your results and circumstances with your beliefs. And so by the time you become an adult, you've had these traumatic experiences, these embarrassments or whatever. And since your subconscious mind is meant to protect you, it's always on the lookout in every situation for anything that could be a threat.
Right.
And so, one thing that I always tell my clients is that imagine that you've performed under pressure 100 times and 95, so you felt nervous 100 times. And 95 you performed amazing and 5 you didn't. So what is your subconscious going to remember? It's 5 because it's not there to protect you from good memories. If it felt great, your subconscious gives it a pass. But if it was embarrassing, hurtful in any way, subconscious is like, okay, I got to remember that for next time. And so it'll remind you. So what we do with that information is like, okay, I'm nervous. I got a big event. I'm nervous. Well, my subconscious is going to say, oh, this is bad. This is the bad one. But remember, it's going to tell you that because they feel exactly the same. Right. When you've performed amazing and you perform not so good, the nerves are going to feel identical. It's what do you do with that? And being willing to have those feelings is crucial.
Beautiful answer. Jim, thanks for putting 5 years into creating your work and your book. Your website is innerexcellence.com. And guys, if you care about performance and resilience and this inner game that's a part of longevity, it's a part of developing consciousness and showing up in whatever your sport is, whether it's even a sport, there is wisdom in this book from a guy who's really done the work. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so spending the day with you has been amazing. So many, all of your years of work in the biohacking is amazing, because I want to also, make my environment inside and out as good as it possibly can be every day. So thank you for all the work you've done.
Very welcome.
See you next time on the Human Upgrade Podcast.